Yes, and we are live here on Let's Think Podcast. I'm your host, Sheikh 7 Islam L, and we have our co-host, brother Jarvis McGriff L.
Peace,
Um,
peace.
yes. Allow me to rise, giving all thanks and perfect praise unto Allah, honest to his holy prophet, honest to the forerunner Marcus Mosiah Garvey, honest to the Moorish Science Temple of America, honest to all leadership, past, present, and future, honest to all participate in the comprehensive program of Uplift the Father Humanity. Honor to my leadership brothers Sheik L. Portis L. and honor to our Grand Sheikas in Portis L. And I'd like to say honors to all of you and honors to our esteemed guest, Sister Dana Reynolds-Marniche Islam.
So,
Um, how are you today, sister? First, before we get to run it off into our tangent like we normally do here on Let's Think Podcast, we just like to say, first and foremost, honors and gratitude for your presence. It's an honor to have you on.
It's an honor to be on. I'm
Yes,
glad you have me on because I was preparing all day.
Yes, man. Hey, listen, everybody, y'all know how we do on Let's Think Podcast. Sometimes we be over the hill, beyond the hill, around the hill, and not quite on the hill. So tonight we was about to fumble. We was about to fumble the play, but we didn't do it. We woke up, we got everything together, we jumped over the hurdle, and honest, like we like to say, we like to wish, wellness upon our brother Sharif Anael-Bey who couldn't make it tonight. And may he, Allah grant him healing. But let's get on to the subject. We have Sister Dana Reynolds-Marniche. And before we even get there, I'd like to say how I came into contact with you, sister. I have been heard of you. Matter of fact, from here. Anybody? Golden Age more. That's the first time I had heard of your name was from this book. And I was on Facebook and dealing with Brother Sharif and Ali's men, the Ali's men research team, honest to them, um, they started presenting some of your posts on Facebook, and I realized, oh my, she has a Facebook, and you are actually communicative. You're not the type that doesn't communicate. You're very much open, and people of such you know status don't really do too much of that. They post their links, they do what they do. They don't have any too much to say to viewers and followers. So that's how I got, accustomed to your name and got acquainted with you. And like I said, it's an honor to have you on. I mean,
Thank you very
that's
much for having me. Thanks very much for having me. I always like to, get this knowledge out there. That's it's almost an obsession of mine. So, yeah.
well. Guess what we get? We're gonna give you all the time you need tonight. We're gonna give you all the time you need tonight. Um. Uh. And without further ado, and the reason why, other than the fact that this is a very important topic, another reason I would like to get it because no one, I had me myself, I haven't heard or read or bear witness to anybody else's work that tackles the situation or the information with such clarity. So I also want to give you honest to that
And I
because
give honest to the ancestors for that because,
yes, man.
yeah.
Um, so our conversation tonight is about the Moorish Berber heritage. Now we have the Moorish Science Temple of America, of course, which I'm a part of. I love and very much advocate and propagate. However, I like to say this um, for those who do not know, I'm pretty sure most should know that the Moorish heritage does extend beyond that and prior to that. And tonight we're going to get a glimpse into just that. So without further ado, sister, you have the floor. You can hit the share button, the present button, whatever you need to do, so we can take us on this journey.
Okay. Well, all right. Let's see if I can bring it up. Uh, I don't know if you're seeing. Are you seeing anything yet or no?
Not yet. So, if you see that present button, do you have a PDF file or is it just something?
Yeah, it's a PDF.
Okay, so you
Hold on a second. I'm gonna put it on the quick. Let's see, what is
okay.
it called? Try it again. Share screen. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
Um. Okay. Now, if I'm gonna bring up a file,
If you hit
well,
it's a button right up under your screen that says
which
present
is it
or
in?
invite.
File image file.
If you
Okay.
hit present or invite, you should see slides and PDFs, extra camera, video file, image file, share screen.
Okay. I'm looking for my image, but uh, let's
If
see.
you would like, you can send. I can send you my email address and you can forward it to me.
Well, hold on
Pull
a
it up
second.
from my end.
I cannot. I'm confused by this.
Yes, man. StreamYard can be difficult at times. And I don't. I do. Okay.
I mean, I don't really need. I don't really need it. I was going to show a map of early Arabia, the Yemen, and you know, but
I mean, if you want, I can
uh,
send. You can send it to me, and I can present it from my side.
yeah.
And
But
I
how
can
do you? What's your
email.
email?
I send it right now, sister. I send it right now. No problem. There we
Yeah, I
go.
just got my computer upgraded, and it's a little difficult to find
Oh yeah,
things.
I understand perfect.
Technology, man. They said it was supposed to make our life easier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
anyway, so the importance of the Yemen and Arabia is that a lot of the people that are called Moors or the Berbers actually had claimed to come from that area, from Yemen and the Hejaz and Tahama. So I was going
Mm.
to go through the main, some of the main areas where the Berbers who are, I don't know how much you've seen of my post on Facebook, but, or on Afroasiatics Black Spot. So I talk about the fact that the Berbers are actually of two sorts. Up until the 16th century, the word Berber referred to the people who the Arabs called El Barabir or Barbara.
Mm.
In West Africa, this was an endonym of the Zagai or Songhai people and the Soninke, who called themselves Banbara, Banbara, um, Babar, Beribor, and Beriberi. So also Berea or Berea. These people had actually extended to the Nile Valley and the Red Sea, where they were called Adiabari, and they lived on the Astaboris, or they were called Astabari by the Greeks. So these people called Bari Bari were spread from the Atlantic to Mauritania, meaning the west, the far west of the Maghreb.
Mm.
Yeah, those were the Berbers. That
That
is
is.
why, as you know, probably the Moors discovered actually that there was a legal document that stated that the Berbers were people that were called the Negroes or people of the Niger.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
You knew that or no? Because that's the Moors. They actually discovered that your organization discovered
Oh,
that the legal document from South Carolina, which I think was the 17th or 18th century.
Oh, yes, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
you talking
What
about the
they
free
like a,
country board?
it was like did that have to do with like the sun
Free
god,
sundry wars. I think
something
yeah.
like
The what?
The free sundry wars. Did that have something to do with that
No.
particular?
no,
Oh, it didn't.
just
No,
Oh,
basically
it was a document, a legal document of South Carolina that's talking about the Negroes and the Moors and the well, what they say is that the slaves called Negroes were called Berbers,
Oh,
and they yeah.
oh
So
yeah, I'm gonna go get that. I know Sharif got it. I'll get it.
yeah, Sharif would know about it. But anyway, so Berry is basically that was one of the first what was called the first generation of Berbers. The other people that were called Berbers in the Arabic sources were the Tuareg people, or the people whose men wore the veil. So these people were called, or actually also one of their tribes, the Lantuna, or otherwise called Alomadin, were the people that, let's see if I can bring up something at least here. The people that the Arab sources refer to as the Almoravids. So the Almoravid Lamtuna is what they called them.
Mm,
Almoravidin were one of the dynasties of the Moors in Spain, and there were other earlier dynasties that were Moorish, meaning of the black people.
mm.
Let's see. Yeah, Ibn Abi Zar called them the Almoravid Lamtuna.
Mm.
Now, what I wanted to do was bring up a photo of the Alamadan today, or Lamtuna, who live in one of the areas of the Sahara, who are actually just regular African-looking people.
Mm.
Yeah, they actually discovered that this particular tribe were isolated, and the lesser distilled um, Tuareg and Berbers were Imazigan. So let me see something.
I heard of that term.
I'm not sure why I cannot bring. Oh, here we go. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. So these are the Kelkumar Tuareg, or a clan of the Alamidun, who are called in the Arab sources Lamtuna. And Lamtuna were a tribe of the Sanhaja. So all the Sanhaja were basically Tuareg, as well as their vassal caste, which came from the Sonink. Uh, so the Sonink, let me go back here. Oh, okay, here's another image. You see it?
Yes,
The other one.
yes, I still see it now.
Yeah, this is a Tuareg of that same group, Kel Kumar, and as you see, he's wearing the purple veil, which is known as the Phoenician purple or the indigo.
Mm.
The veil and turban. This is worn by the nobles, whereas the other colors are for lesser, either the slaves or the servants or vassal class. So this guy is a pure Lamtuna Berber. Those were the people that actually went into Spain, who had the vassal castes of Sonink. And the Sonink, hold on a second. Let me just try to get rid of some of these. Okay, and here are other Berbers of the Zenata stock. So there are 5 separate groups of Berbers that the Arabic sources usually talked about, and they were the Sanhaja, the Masmuda, the Kitama, the Hawara, and the Sanhaja, Masmuda, Kitama, Hawara, Zenata. So these
Mm.
are the Zenata-speaking Berbers, and they're of Tigraran. So these particular people are located in the area of central Algeria. A lot of the people, when you get away from the coastal area of North Africa, look like this, or basically, dark brown colored people used to be called black, and the people in this region were called. They were led by an Entalis. They're very historical people going back to the Byzantine writers. Okay, as you can see, also the turbans are what were worn in Spain, the same exact turbans that I have on my Facebook page.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if you've seen that, but the same exact turbans that they wore, pictured on the Andalusian paintings of the 1400s, where the Reconquista, where the Spaniards were pushing out the Moors. They show them wearing these particular turbans. So, and these turbans are found, from Morocco to Mauritania, Algeria.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, as you can see, this is actually just the northern people of the Berbers. They're not Tuareg, but they're the other Berbers who were related to the Soninke and the Barbara and the Genoa, or people that were called. I mean, let me know if I'm, getting a little too involved, because.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
We listening.
Yeah, we are so much involved right now. I'm right now already.
I just wanted to, okay, let me go to my Facebook page where I have tons of pictures of the Masmuda Berbers, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, are there any questions that you have, by the way, about the connection of the Moors to the Berbers? The Moors actually originally referred to like 4 different groups in the area of what's now northern Morocco, and that's where they're first mentioned. And Strabo said they were called Moors due to their color.
Right.
And the Procopius and Corpus also described them as black skin. They were Byzantine writers before the 7th century. Okay, so the 5th and 6th, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th century writers talking of Mauritania, which was the area stretching between Morocco and Tunisia, that those people were black-skinned. So that's where the phrase black-skinned like the Moors came from.
Right. Yeah. Black skin like the Moors.
Yeah, black skin like the Moors. And even somebody like Haydn was called a Moor just because he was black skinned, not because he was Muslim or anything.
Okay.
All right,
so basically what you're saying is at one point in history, the Europeans saw, basically when they saw anyone who looked like us, they automatically called them a Moor.
Right, yes. Especially in Germany and England, until the 16th century, even in Spain. But in the Latin dialects and Italian, Moorian, Mavri still means the black man. Moreno in Spanish still means dark or black men in Ecuador and other places in South America. So over time in Spain, even in Morocco, let me just try to get some other pictures up here. Even in Morocco, Grafton Elliott Smith, an Australian anatomist, that said that the Egyptians and all these people were of the Hamitic, so-called brown Hamitic Caucasian race.
Oh, how does that go together?
Yeah, that's what they called these so-called people. They're calling them Hamitic, but earlier they're called Negroes and that kind of thing.
Yes, ma'am.
So do you see the screen or no? Oh.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I want to go down to some of the Berbers. A lot of these are Arabs, either Arabs or Berbers. This is a Berber family from the Draw area in Algeria and between Algeria and Morocco. And as you see, they're wearing these chin symbols that were brought to America and the Polynesian area as well by Africans. Yeah, thousands of years ago. Even the early depictions of the California and Californians have these markings. These are also women of Tuareg in Libya. So you'll see that the Tuareg people are either, the nobles are usually these very tall, over 6 foot, over 7 foot tall men, because they actually came from these people called the Philistines that were in Arabia at the time, or
Mm.
Philistines and Amalek and Adites. That's what they call themselves in their own traditions. They said hold on, they left Canaan, which was the area south of Mecca for them in the Old Testament, 900 years before Alexander the Great. This is just to let you know, this is Jordan. Transjordanians were also, that's where the Beni Canaan went and settled and founded places like Jericho.
Mm.
Named after the places in further south in the Yemen called Jericho and Beit Shan and Moab and places like that. So these are just Arab, the purer Arab peoples.
The pure bloods.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
yeah, in Yemen.
So at one time, at one point in history, Sister Dana Marniche,
Yes,
being Arab, was being Arab almost significant to having dark skin at one point in history?
yeah, Arab were supposedly the term used for the nobles of the Arabs, like these particular people, was Khuder, or Khudair, and it's still the term used for dark-skinned Arabs. So the word Khudair is translated in the Bible as Kedar. Okay, the Kedar, yes, the Kedarites were the Ishmaelites, and these people still in the north central part of Arabia are called Khudair. But these particular people of the Gulf or Kuwait um, came from those areas of,
Oh.
yeah, and they're still called Hudair, except now the word Hudair refers to someone of it's a negative derogatory term, whereas in the ancient past it was said to have been a term for the noble or pure Arab. Oops.
Man, isn't that something?
That is something.
Yeah. Here are Arabs of Turkey that they also try to say were not there. This was taken during, I think, World War One by the Germans. See, this is a German guy. But anyway, yeah, so part of the area of the Arabs extended well into Turkey, and they were called the Kara Arapi, or the Black Arabs, because there were also later on other people that went there. So, for example, if you go to some of these places in Eastern Europe and Turkey, they still call the word for a black man is Arapi. Because,
Happy. Come
yeah,
on, bro. They replaced the B with a P.
yeah. Here, here are some of the Berbers of Fez, Morocco. Okay. Um, Fez is, of course, a very prominent city of the Moors, trading center of the early Moors, just as Timbuktu was, and Sijil Massa, and Tangiers. You'll also see those are ancient Numidians of Algeria. This is a depiction, of course, of the ancient Numidians as
Mm-hmm.
they appeared on the Roman or Byzantine sculptures as well.
Mm-hmm.
Honors and gratitude to brother creators of the Balanced Universe for the $2 super chat. He said the tents of Kedar.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So they talk about the tents of Kedar or Kuder, who were, yeah, that was one of the tribes of Ishmael, but the other tribes of Ishmael are also called black. The word Kedar actually means the greenish, actually came from a greenish iron, and that's how they came to be called Kedar. It's
Oh,
also,
like the green one from almost like
yes,
the green one.
yes, Kutar or Kudar. So it's an ancient Canaanite deity, actually. That was a god of, yeah, god of metallurgy and wisdom, Kuthar or Kuder. Yeah, which they don't, people don't focus on this because they're trying to make the Hebrews and these Canaanite peoples that the Israelites came from into other people. But these are Yeah,
then it's not true.
yeah. These are,
Oh my God.
yeah. So these are the Masmuda Berbers of the southern Moroccan area, or the Atlas. Masmuda. The Masmuda are always described as black-skinned people up until the 15th century, just like the other Berbers.
Hmm.
Um, so, for example, okay, wait a second. Let me see. These are just here's an Arab of the Hawazin tribe that's northern Arabia, related to the Khudair I was showing you. But let's see. So I was working on. Oops.
It's like a.
Let me stop sharing here and.
So why would they want to paint the narrative that everybody was just a Hebrew and not?
Well, the Hebrews was just a general name for the people who spoke the Canaanite dialects. Actually, it's more like a more recent term now. But Abraham and the earliest of the so-called prophets were Hebrews, and that's why, because most of the tribes that come later are from the Hebrews.
Mm-hmm.
Canaan was actually where the Hebrews came from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Hebraic dialect also is a dialect of the Canaanites. There is a Canaanite language group that these dialects came from, and Hebrew was one of them because the original Hebrews were Canaanites. Hold on a second. I was talking about, what was I looking up? And now I can't remember.
I think he was looking up maybe a video or another
No, I was
picture
talking
there.
about, what was I talking about? Oh no. Before I was talking about this, let's see. Okay, now I'm lost. But if you have a question,
I know you had pulled up a picture. That picture you were showing us some other people.
you don't remember the people? Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, Hawazin, but I was talking about okay, so here's a picture of the defeat of the Moguls by Seljuk soldiers. I don't even know which one is. I think the Seljuk soldiers are here because the Seljuks ruled. The Turks ruled over the Berbers in the Fatimid period, and the Masmuda are, for example, were there, and they were 20,000 blacks armed with spears, and yeah, 20,000 black-skinned people, according to Nasir Khusrau of the, I think it was 1100s AD. Here are some.
You were show. He said they say you were showing the pictures of the people in Libya.
In Libya.
Uh-huh.
Mm,
It
I don't
says
know.
the
They
people
were-
from the Atlas Mountains.
Oh, are you? Yeah, I'm sorry. Are you not? Okay, I guess you're not
I'm
seeing it
thinking,
anymore.
I think I'm not
Hold
seeing
on,
it anymore. You have to
hold
show
on
it
a
again.
second.
Bear with this. Our sisters learning to use this thing. This thing can be difficult. I'm telling you. I think we got it now. Um, I don't see.
Ancient peoples of North Africa.
There we go.
Timbuktu, and I was showing these Seljuk. Okay, the Seljuk. The people that were working for Saladin and the Fatimids.
Uh,
This is 1281 AD in Syria.
Syria.
In Syria, yeah. It's a battle of Syria, of the Muslims against the Moguls or Mongols.
Whoa.
Yeah. And there's many pictures like that. I was showing the Hawazin.
Yeah, that picture.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
This is what he was
So this is a painting. It says Bakist, a Hawazin Bedouin. So the Hawazin ibn Mansur were brethren of the Sulaim ibn Mansur that lived in the deserts of Hijaz. The Hijaz was described as a place of very dark purple people by the Chinese in the 1500s or 15th century, as well as Medina. That's what I was looking up some of that stuff from. Medina, for
and,
example.
and now we're talking about during the time. Now we're talking about the same people that were during the time of the Prophet Muhammad. Hijaz being Arabia and Medina
Yeah,
being
yeah.
yes, man.
okay.
Mm.
But the thing is, a lot of these people are the same people that had come over earlier, because the people came back from Arabia into Africa in different ways. And one of them were the Canaanite peoples, who were said to be ancestors of many of the Berbers.
Good.
So especially, so one of the papers I'm working on now for my publisher, they're going to publish it as a book, is about the Canaanites. And I'll be talking about how the peoples of Nabatea, which is part of Jordan and extending into, mainly part of Jordan and Petra. First of all, they were described as black. And that's what, okay, let me go back to here. So I was talking about how the certain descriptions of the Nabateans. It's just fun. So an author named al-Damashqi in the 12th century or 1200s, I forget which one, wrote about the peoples of Africa. He was a geographer, and he said there was a part of his book that said it had a title called "The Fifth Section Concerning the Sons of Ham, Son of Noah," namely the Copts, the Nabateans, the Berbers, and the Sudan with their numerous divisions. Then he said,
Whoa.
the historians assert that the cause of the black complexion of the sons of Ham is that he had intercourse with his wife on the ship, and another version was that he saw Noah asleep. But anyway, originally, everybody, the children of Noah, before this, Judaism and Islam were adopted, and Christianity were adopted by other people in Syria, Turkey, Central Asia, or Iran, Tajikistan, Turkestan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, and all. Before these people adopted uh, all these biblical type and Hebrew type commentaries, it was said that the people of Noah were actually the people that worshipped the South Arabian deities like Siwa and Wad and the Manaean Sabian deities. That's originally were the people or the folk of Noah. It wasn't really meant to be, be represented by people from all over the world. It was just all of these people that were in the area of Canaan and stretching across to Central Arabia and to the Yemen, into the Yemen. Now, if you go back even 500 years ago, you'll find out that the Yemen too was considered part of the Sudan, Bilad as Sudan, meaning the lands of the blacks. And that extended way over to Indonesia, where there was, or Indochina and Indonesia, where there were also a number of black people. But okay, so the rest of his quote from the book says something about, so the Canaan was the descendant of, or excuse me, the Berbers were descendants of Canaan, the Sudan were descendants of Cush, and the Copts were descendant of Kift, or the Kiftu. Okay. Now, Cush and Canaan in the original African and Arabic sources was the area of what's now called Zabid. Let me see if I can find. Nabid is in southern Yemen. It's also the name called Sapta, son of Cush. It's related to that, you know. And
Mm.
these Sabians are and Manaeans are the people that traveled northward and were the early Christians of Syria. And that's why, if you see here, you'll see all these saints: Saint George, Saint Moses of the Berber or the Ethiopian, Saint Isidore of Skeet, not the one of Spain. Um, all these Saint Cyprian, all these are represented, um, as dark skin, not as And I'm trying to see, where was this. This might have been an early Russian, may have been early Russian portrayals.
Oh.
Here's Yemenite refugees that went over to Djibouti in Africa, the Horn of Africa. There's, of course, Jesus. Now, this area of Transjordania I was talking about was settled by the Nabatean people, who were, part of that Kedar or Kruder group. They were called Nabit. Nabit. Nabit was another word for black person, just like Kruder, and just like
Mm.
Kush. Kush later became a name for black people.
Mm.
Most of these words came to be derogatory. This guy is in the land of John the Baptist, where John the Baptist came from, and all this area was described in the 11th century, well, 1,000 years ago, as being inhabited by black people, black-skinned people. They were in
Mm.
Shan and Jericho, that were the major centers. They created indigo products, which, like I said, was called the uh, Phoenician purple, because
Ooh.
the Phoenicians and these people were the same people. Yeah, and this is where John the Baptist was an Essene. The Essenes were in this area as well, the early Christian Essenes, and that's why you see in a lot of early representations of the Manaean, or the saints, the early Christians being portrayed as dark, like this fellow here.
Man.
This is the Wadi Karar area south of the Dead Sea. The people in the area of Wadi Karar are closely connected to the haplogroup of the Natufians, who settled in Palestine over 10,000 years ago. And they're also connected to the Natufians, who are closely connected in their haplogroup to the Amhara Ethiopians. So these were the early Afro-Asiatic peoples that brought the Semitic civilization, and the Semitic dialects into the Near East from East Africa and the Nile Valley. Hold on a second. Okay. This particular group is important. I always tell people, because of their mention in the Bible, as well as the book of Yashar, or Safar HaYashar, as the Yifi or Yafi ibn Qasid. The Qasid were people called Kasdim by Josephus and others. The Kasdim were the people called Chaldeans. The Ifa or Yafi are the people in the Bible called Epha of the Madianites. So basically, these people also settled in the Horn of Africa. This is the tribe of Yahar, the Yahar part of the Yafi. The Yahar settled in Somalia and are the Jews that are actually discriminated against in Somalia, also known as Yabir and Heber.
Mm.
Yes. Here's Biskra, which is Algeria. I think these were Zanata Berbers as well. These are Arabs in between. So the Arabs came later than the Berbers, and back into Africa. There were many of the Sulaim, Ibn Mansur, and Hawazin Ibn Mansur group, who included the Makil Arabs that settled further west and went up into Spain. You'll see them. They're called Trarza as well. They settled further south in Senegal and Mauritania. The Trarza Arab group. So if you look at the Trarza, these are not the Trarza, these are just Bakara or Shua Arabs. Bakara meaning the cattle, referring to the so
Heard.
many, yeah. So many tribes of Sudan are actually descendants of people that came over from Hijaz, especially the Salim and the Hawazin actually swept across, according to the Arab sources, swept across North Africa like locusts. So they also made part of the Moors in Spain. They were also sometimes, especially by the Portuguese. These are also, these are Berbers of the Dous Festival in Tunisia, which is in North Africa. Of course, between Libya and Algeria. And this is also central Algeria, the area of Touggourt, which was said to date back to the time of Queen of Sheba. They have the Origa Berbers, also known as Hawara, who were related to the Tuareg and the Tuareg vassal castes. They were also, a lot of the Tuareg vassal castes also were, like I said, Soning Songhai. So they mixed with these groups, mixed and settled in these places, these different oases extending from Morocco, the Draw area of Morocco, all the way to Libya. And so if you get away from the coast, like I said, most of the people look like, these people, more like the original Moors. So these people. This is Sahara. The Sahara was where, this is Ouargla in Algeria, where the Jainawa people called, the Soning people called Jainawa, were also part of the mix that settled between Ghana, which was a town in Mauritania, and this area. So the Jainawa or Idinawan became the people known as Ganawiya or Guineans. So they also settled later on further south. They were called the Berbers or Berry, and that is why a lot of these people that came from the slave coast or the Guinea coast over in America, that's why they're called the Berbers. Yeah. So, and they also came to America in the very ancient period too and brought this knowledge of gold because they were the gold traders. A lot of the Soning people were the Wangara, or the Wakur and Wangara. The Wangara brought over, and they're also called, that name Gara goes back to very ancient times where they're called the Garamandis. Yeah. And they're also found in the Gara is still a name for the Garine or Korean people in Libya. Black people that, some of these non-African people were trying to make into slaves and kick out of Libya and whatever. They've been there for over 3,000 years. Yeah. So these are
All around the world, the same song.
yeah. These are people of the Shukake area in Jazan and the Asir region of Saudi Arabia. Jazan was an area in the Tahama or the mountainous Asir Tahama, which is part of the Yemen back in the Ottoman era. It was occupied by people like the Kanana and the Sulaim tribes. I can't remember which tribe this was. This might have been, I don't know. I can't remember, but this is the Trarza tribe I was talking about that had went into Spain as the Arab Moors, the Arab version of the Moors. And they're also, if you look at the paintings of the early Moors and Alfonso's, period, they're still dressed the same way that they were in those paintings. And here's Wadi Hali, the province in Mecca, where there were the people called Kinana and Quraysh. And this area is part of the Tahama. So the Kinana tribe also named that area. It was called the Plain of Kinania. And that is where that is the reason why apparently Noble Drew Ali had said or told the Moors that the original Canaan was south of Mecca. So
Mm.
this is the Mecca, excuse me, this is the Canaan of the Old Testament. A lot of these people later moved, after 1000 BC, moved northward to become the Nabateans and the settle in that Gore Transjordanian area where they brought their names with them, like Jericho and stuff, where there are still Cananea people, black Cananea people.
So that's
Um,
basically saying Cananea is basically saying Canaanite, right? If I'm not mistaken.
yeah, Banu Canana or the Cananea, these are just plural terms for the Canana. Quraysh Canana, who are also in Sinai still and are black and were described as black, back then.
And
And by the
Koresh, is this
by,
Koresh the same tribe that Prophet Muhammad was supposedly came from?
yeah, yep.
Mm.
That is why the Europeans portrayed him or the leader of the Muslims as a black man on their shield, as a Negro. Anyway, anyway,
Ain't that something?
yeah.
Ain't that something, man? Hey, listen, man. Hey, listen. Man, what she's doing, bro, it reconstructs the whole narrative, bro.
It really changes the whole narrative for sure.
And these are Songhai, just to show you they're not much different in color than anybody else. The Songhai or Zugai, or further north, they were called Zakai. In Berber tradition, they're called Zakia. Zakia or Zakai, as they're called in the Bible, meant pure or the pure meat. So the Zagawa are named for the Arabic people called them Zagawa after their sheep, because the ancient. And another thing I haven't gotten to yet is that these Hebrews were actually, most of them were Jews. When I say that, I'm talking about the Songhai groups that claim in their Tariq al-Fatah and Tariq al-Sudan to have come from the Levites.
Whoa. Whoa. Wait a minute.
Yeah, people don't tell you that.
Whoa.
That's not just African Americans. That's what their text sources, manuscripts say. And the Arabic sources say that these Zagai, Zagawa, Wangara people were Jews. That's 1,000 years ago, though, previous to becoming Muslim. Now, Jews at that time were also considered like pagans sometimes. So sometimes they were also called pagan.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I think I read something close to this in the book from Timbuktu to Babylon.
okay, maybe. And a lot of the Jew, yeah, in that book, which I have in another room, is where I first saw about the colonialists that came to, and I have this on my Afro-Asiatics blog spot, but the colonialists that came to North Africa said that most of the Jews were black, and were as black as the Ethiopians, and that supposedly, or at least in the Arab sources, it says supposedly they were proselytizers. They were the ones that spread Judaism across, North Africa, and that the fair-skinned Jews are the ones that came in later and were not, they weren't the original black Jews of North Africa, who were the Berbers or Berry.
Mm.
But sometimes people confuse those. They said that the original Jews, and I have that on my Afro-Asiatic site, I'll have to look that up. But these are the Hagari tribe of Hadramaut. This is a colonial vintage photo, otherwise known as Hagar,
Mm-hmm.
which was the mother of Ishmael.
Look at that complexion.
It's supposedly a woman they said, of Egypt or Mitzrayim. So Mitzrayim and the Kipti were considered to be Arabians in African and Arab sources. So when you're talking about Mitzrayim, you're talking about a place in southwest Arabia. And these people actually conquered that area, which is now called United Arab Republic of Egypt. And they settled there back before 1,000, supposedly before 1008 BC, and moved um, westward, and further into the Maghreb and further southward finally. And that is why these Songhai smiths claim to have been the smiths of the pharaohs, the ones that turned, the magician smiths of the pharaohs that turned the serpents into, what was it, the wine into water or something like that. I forget. But they claim that they came from the Kipti. A lot of them claim to come from the Kipti, who were these nomadic people, not modern day Copts, who, by the way, are also described as black up until the 16th century. So 400 years ago, Al-Makrizi described the Kipti as black and indistinguishable from the Abyssinians, Nubians, and Israelites. And that is also why al-Dimashqi said that the Syrians said that the Kipti and the Nabateans, Cush and Canaan were all from Ham, and was explaining why they had black skin. So now you don't see, of course, any Copts, at least in the photos online. You never see any black or dark-skinned Copts ever.
Mm.
Then there's just Egyptians. Here's more the Chowin Berbers of northern Morocco, because they inhabited the Masmuda occupied at one time the northern plains of Morocco with people like the Zenata, who founded places like Fez and Sijil Massa. It was said that all of the masons of Sijil Massa were Jews.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, the metallurgists, smiths. So the gold miners and gold makers, silversmiths, the salt miners were all of the same people, stretching between Arabia, Transjordania, the Levant, and Africa. The same black people called Cain or Kenuka, better known in the Bible as the Kenites. And that's where you find, they brought names like Kano, which was the capital of the Hausa, Kano, meaning the blacksmith. So the Kenites were from Jethro, the Levite. That's where that comes from. That's why the text manuscripts of the Western Sudan, these Gnawa Guinea people, otherwise called Negroes, claim to have come from the Levites, Jethro and the other Kenite people.
Mm.
But yeah, so here's more Karen people, the Gara people of Libya, who founded ancient Garamantia. And the Germa Songhai or Zarma Songhai also come from these people. Here's the Masmuda Berbers in the Upper Atlas in a place called Tinmal, which was where the Almohade dynasty began. Almohade, after the Almoravid dynasty of the Tuareg. The Almoravid dynasty in Iberia was called the dynasty of the Philistines because it was a dynasty of the Tuareg.
Mm.
And the later dynasty was the Masmuda dynasty, and as I said, originally described as black by Abu Shama of the 14th century, Ibn Butlan of the 11th or 12th century, and also Nasir Khusrau, an Iranian, or Persian, or I should say Iranian, because at that time Persia became something else. Original Persians were black.
Yeah.
And later on, they became the Scythian-related peoples. All right, so the Masmuda were 20,000 of the soldiers of the Fatimid people who were ruled by, who came to be under the control of the Kurdish Saladin. So there was a lot of fighting that came about between the blacks, the so-called Masmuda Berbers, and the people of Zawela or Zayla in Libya, who are also black of the Zenata type, or the Zawaga group of the Berbers. Now this name Zenata, well, no, you know what, I'm not going to even say that because it's going to be a surprise in my book. But see here, I was talking about the Berber, um, their how they wear the turbans the same way as in the ancient or the manuscripts of the Spanish. This is the 14th century um, depiction of the Battle of Puig, 13th
Quick.
century, that occurred in the 13th century in Valencia, and apparently they knew exactly how these people wore their turbans. So these are probably Zenata Berbers.
Mm. Whoa.
There's the Persians I was talking about, but see,
Ooh. And that's a turban on his head, right?
no, he's just wearing a something.
So like,
No, it's not a turban. It's
okay.
just a band around his head.
A band, a band. Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's
and
kind of
now,
common.
yeah, and that was a common thing for the Moors to wear too. But
Headband.
I think it was either Diodorus Siculus or Strabo, early Greek authors of around the first century A.D. that wrote about the Moors wearing bands around their white bands around their head and uh, earrings.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
All right, these are just Yemen with a visitor, Wakala area, the Wadi Dawan in the Yemen, and Hajamat. Hajamat is a place where these are just American Negroes. Actually, there are women that were visiting from New York. They were the flapper dancers, early flappers. These are, he has henna on, you know, henna.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, wow. It's
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's not his real hair because I think I see some gray hair. But
right.
yeah, as you can see, they look just like the early statues of the Sabians because these
Mm.
people actually settled in Ethiopia before it. Now they're mixed, you know, she looks like she's mixed
Mm-hmm.
with something else. But if you go to Yemen, apparently, especially in Hajjama, you'll see a lot of the people, and they have the same names as the people on the opposite side of the Red Sea. In the
Mm.
Horn of Africa, like the Somali tribal names are found in Somali tribal names, Eritrean tribal names, and are found across the Red Sea. The Beja tribal names are found across the Red Sea because a lot of the Beja themselves of Nubia came over. This is Tuareg, I think. Might be Fulani, but I think no, because the Tuareg here. Tuareg woman wearing purple, the indigo. Arabs in Cairo. Saint Musa the Berber, also called Saint Musa the Black or Ethiopian.
Mm.
Yep, Ethiopian Jews.
Man, this is like
And here's more
What?
more more fighting against the Spaniards or Saracens, whatever. These are just Ethiopian women today. Moroccan woman.
mm,
These are the Shla, meaning the Berbers of the Upper Atlas, again called the Masmuda.
the
So
upper as the
Masmuda,
people of that. And are these the it's created to excuse me.
sorry.
I was in gratitude to creator of the balanced universe. He also said the people of the Atlas Mountains.
I'm sorry. He said, what about them?
The people of the Atlas Mountains.
Did what?
No, I think he was just identifying some of the people that you were
Oh,
speaking.
oh,
Hmm.
okay. Were Moors, he said, maybe.
Yes, man.
Okay, so here you see they look just like the people of the Transjordanian area I was talking about, which is better known for in the 11th century as the land of Moab. So the people,
Whoa,
yeah,
whoa. Say it again.
yeah,
Say, come on.
it
Say it
was
again.
it was known as the land of Moab, and that
Mm,
was the Moabites, the children of Moab, the people, children of Lut or Lot, in English Lot.
mm-hmm.
So this is the Hula Valley, and of course they try to say a lot of you know certain people that, especially African Americans going over to this area, they wanted them to identify as African, but they don't because they came from Mesopotamia. A lot of them came from Mesopotamia and from the Yemen in ancient times, or have been there for thousands of years, since the Natufians share the similar genetic affinity with them. Now, they also have a affinity with the Afro-Asiatic speakers of northern Cameroon, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Northern Cameroon. So it may mean that these people, the Nabataeans, who were bigger bone people than some of the other people, represent the most early Afro-Asiatic expansion into this area, the Levant. Okay, so these Hula or Huela were mentioned in the Bible as well. Hul, Hul, and these are just people of Aden in southern Yemen. You know, they look kind of Indian, but they're not. And these are more Berbers, Moroccan Berbers, still there. Now, what I found out is that the Moroccan Berbers themselves, the dark-skinned ones, are called Haratan. They're usually free. Haratan. They're usually free men, but in Mauritania, not usually they're descended from the slaves, and they're called Haratan. Haratan. The people that are descended from slaves of the so-called white Moors, which are basically these people, because white in Arabic sources refers to people that look like us and not literally black people. Okay, white in the early Hebrew and Arabic and Semitic sources refers to people like this, and to the Tuareg, and to African Americans, not
European.
Not the red people who are called Europeans. Yes, they were called red, the Ahmar people, or Hamar. Humra.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's
Those
powerful.
are red people.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why the Arabs spoke of themselves as, the blacks. They said the blacks, and they called the European and the Syrian, the Turks, the Central Asians, the red, because they had ruddy skin originally. The Byzantines as well, meaning the Neo-Romans or Greco-Romans. All those people were converted to first Judaism and then Christianity and then Islam by these Afro-Asiatic peoples that were spread between West Africa and Arabia. Now, what happened was some groups came in at different times, and the Soning Songhai group actually speaks what's called Nilo-Saharan. They settled in the Aswanek region or Elephantine region of Nubia. It's now in Egypt. But this is where the word Aswan comes from. The Sonic comes from. The Aswanek came from that area and were the Elephantine Jews. So if you look at in the 5th century BC, you'll find that that this area was occupied by Jews, Nubia Jews. Yeah.
Whoa.
Called Shambardai. There's more, here go the chin markings with the ancient Berbers, women. It's Yemen.
They're like mother or cousin.
Yemen. This is Jordan again, the Transjordanian Gar area. Probably the remnants of the Phoenicians too, as well. As you look at their faces, you can see that. So this area, so the Nabateans were the people that were called, or at least one of the groups called Phoenicians. Okay, that's and they were also called the Thamud in Arabic sources. Thamud was a son of Ad. I don't know if you heard of the Adites.
Ad, yes.
The
yes.
Ad. But the Ad people you're generally very tall, like the people in the Hijaz that were called Khazraj and Aus, or the companions of the Prophet.
Mm.
Khazraj and Aus, they had among them a group called the Nabate, who were anciently the same people that were in allegiance with the Solimi tribe, Banu Sulaim ibn Mansur, that I showed you, or I showed you the
Mm-hmm.
Hawazin. So the Solimi were called in ancient times in the Roman era Solimians, Solimi, and that is why Tacitus and Josephus said that they were, that many people believed, well, Tacitus said many people believed that they were the Jews, okay? Josephus said that they were um, us, meaning that they were Jews. Joseph
Mm.
himself was a Roman who was Jewish, but he was saying the Salimi must be us, meaning the Jews. And these Salimi people colonized different towns from the south of Yemen up into the Levant with the name Salimi, like Ur Salimi, or
You're
what we
silly.
call Jerusalem. So you find
Mm.
Jerusalem or Dar es Salaam in places like Sana'a in Yemen, where this is supposed to be the original Jerusalem, and you'll find other Salamian places named, you know, even in Central Arabia, you'll find Haru Salami, and in,
Mm.
of course, in the later in the Levant, you have Jerusalem, which is supposed to be the modern Israel, which has nothing, very little to do with the ancient Israelites.
Oh wow.
And
Because
then, and yeah, yeah.
the ancient Israelites were peoples like the Salami. That is why um, Benjamin of Tudela said, and also who else? Eldad, I think it was Eldad Hadani, and somebody, the adventurer, the small guy that said his people were from the tribe of Reuben. He was like he was described as a Negro, a short dwarf Negro, and that's because the people in Khaybar, which was the capital of the Jews, were extremely small and built. And in fact, a lot of the Arab people, if you know the real Arab people, they're extremely small. Um,
Mm.
they can be, they can get to like 4 foot something, and they can also be giant in size. So you had these very small black people in certain places, very thin in other places, and giants like the Khazraj Aus group, who had something to do with the Nabate or Nabatians. These Nabate people had settled Mesopotamia or actually, they settled the Hijaz from the Yemen. They may have originally lived in Mesopotamia.
Oh.
They claim to have come from Mesopotamia, a lot of these people in the Gar. But as you notice, they're bigger bone structure than the more gracile Ethiopian types that also occupy Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but okay, let me go. This is just another South American priest. These are Sonic women.
Mm.
Yep,
Look
same
at that.
color. These are oh yeah, this is the area of Bir Ali in the Yemen coast, on the coast of where they had the
Mm.
Kane or Kane people. As I said, these people even today are called, well, in Jewish sources they're called Kano.
Kano.
Literally Kano, Kano, just like in Africa you have
Uh,
Kano. Yeah. So, but here they're called Kane. They're next to Hiran, which is in Yemen, Eden or Aden, and the merchants of Sheba, Asher, and Chilmad were your traders. So you find that in Ezekiel 27:23. And they're referring to this place. And this is where the Kenites originated, actually. So if you look
mm.
at, yeah. So I have a book. I don't know if you've heard of my book, but let's see. Um, my book is called the African and Arabian origin of the Hebrew Bible, and I talk about the connection of the Kenites with these Al-Qaim people of the Kude Arabs, confederation of tribes that include the Mara. I don't know if you're familiar with these names, but you have to read my blogspot to know. But the Mahra and the Shahra and the Bahra and the Kalb or Kaleb and the Saleh or Sheila, the Thar, all these people were of, of related to the early judges of Israel called Caleb, like I say, and Sheila and Kines or the Kenizzites.
Mm.
So, so the Kude, one of their names is Kunes, Al Kunes, meaning the Kenizzite. Um, Kude means leopard. A lot of these biblical names, including the names of the tribes of Israel, were names of animals and fauna. But you'll find most of the tribal names of these Kude people in were in Judea. A lot of them were in Judea, and they are also related to peoples like the Belly of Transjordania, and also Sudan and Nubia, because that's where they came down. These Moabite people came down into Sudan and Nubia. Even, I mean, some of them came across directly from Yemen, and they were known as Bilam or Blemis. The name Jaina is supposed to be related to them because Jaina or Janus was a son of Janus. So, in order to understand like where a lot of these traditions come from, you have to know the Torah or Bible, because they talk about Janus in there as one of the people that had turned to the Jewish religion, but that were Horites or were of Balaam. Balaam was actually the ruler of Edom. He was also called Lukman, Lukman the Wise in certain.
Mm.
So he's supposed to have came over. It's very complicated, but so all of these traditions are also mentioned in books like the Safar Yashar, Book of Jubilees. They talk about the Jaina, and the movement of Edomites, and they even call Dinhaba of the Edomites. They say that's in Africa and stuff, because at that time there was not much difference between what's called Africa and Arabia. It was considered
Right.
by early writers basically the same. In fact, Strabo and Diodorus said that everything east of the Nile was Arabia. So, and
Whoa.
that row was founded by Sabians. So people have to understand that there's been movement back across. The Blue Nile was occupied by, like I said, by the Astabari or Astaborians.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise now called, or later called Adiabari. It's called the Atbara now, the river, the Blue Nile. But a lot of these Sabian, Azteca, Kushite Canaanite peoples had settled in the Horn of Africa and moved into the Nile Valley and moved even before 1000 BC. And that's why there's similar mythology, and many of the deities of those West Africans are actually deified ancestors that are mentioned in the Bible as prophets. So Nimrod and Odudawa are known as Dedan, and well, Lamrudu or Namrudu is known as Nimrod in the Bible, and Odudawa is known as Eudatus by Josephus, but it's called Dedan. He's also called Dedan because Dedan and Eudatus are the same word, the same name. But yeah, a lot of the
That's
West
powerful.
deities are actually the same. And even Ifa, when they talk about Ifa, they're talking about that's like an ancient Jaffa, Tel Aviv, or Jaffa. They're all related names.
Mm.
So yeah, so it might be a lot to absorb in.
No, yeah, sister, you're taking us on it.
You
Like,
t-
you taking us on a journey, and one beautiful thing about what we're doing right now, because it's YouTube, we're doing this on YouTube, is that people always have the time to come back, watch this video, pause it, go research, play it again. From that point, pause it, and go do what they got to do to basically. Because I'm honestly like I'm so honored to have you here because that's exactly what I'm gonna do with the replay.
Oh, for
You know what I'm
sure.
saying? I'm digesting as much as I can right now,
Right.
but trust me,
You're hitting a
you
lot of points. You're hitting a
yeah
lot of
yeah
points that we've went over, and
Yeah.
yes.
and
Well,
and
the problem is that almost every tribal name of the Africans, like the Sonic are called Bafur, which is Yafur in the Quran, and in the Bible it's well, it has to do with the name of Ephraim too, Ephraim or Ephraim, but that's another
Hmm.
a whole other story. It has to do with the movement of the Amalekites or the Tuareg and their vassal clans over into Africa. And that's what I was
Hmm.
saying. Ephraim, like a lot of the Jews, like the Igbo, I think it's the Igbo Jews that claim descendancy from the Ephraim or Ephraim. In the Bible, it says that Amalek, sorry, the Ephraim or Ephraim, that's a son of Joseph. It's the brother of Manasseh and son of Joseph. Manasseh being Mansur, the name of the Sulaim, and how is he Mansur? Mansur is a plural for Manasseh. But anyway, um, these Pharain bin Bali or Pharain bin Amalek both came into Africa, and that is why both the Tuareg and the a lot of the other Sonic related Africans that are calling themselves Jews claim descent from Ephraim.
Hmm.
But you have to know the sequence of events and how they came into Africa. But Ufair is mentioned is the name of a donkey in the Quran, but it's also mentioned in traditional sources as the son of Janus, I think. So that links it again together with
Hmm.
this whole Berber traditions, which say Zakia or the Zakai were ancestors of the Berbers, and the Berbers go back to Canaan. They all claim descent from Canaan through Madgis, who is Madij, who was an Arabian Yemenite ancient tribe of Madij or Madig, and through Mazik. So the Tuareg especially came from the Imazigan Mazik people who were populated the Tripolitanian deserts of Tunisia and Libya, and they moved um, across. One of the tribes mentioned in the Batian inscriptions are the Mazexos. So all these peoples mentioned in inscriptions in South Arabia and uh, North Arabia, which is where the Nabateans are mentioned in
Hmm.
inscriptions and are the peoples of the Bible. Josephus in the Bible calls them Mashik, the Mashik, or children of Mash, son of Aram.
Hmm.
All the Semites, or Shem, Ham, and Japheth, were all belong to this one. Well, there weren't one actually. There were several groups of populations with affinities to Africans that were living in the Levant and in Arabia thousands of years ago, and that's why when they moved back, they looked different. Some of them that came later on came into Africa, into the Horn, like the Kara tribe, which are part of the Kanana group further north. All their sub clans of the Kara in Arabia are also found in Somalia, like I was saying, and they look just like them.
Hmm.
Um, so if you name any group, like what's good is if you name any group, I can tell you any group in the Bible, I can tell you where they are now and what their names are.
That's
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah. But to just go through and talk about this particular group and this, it's hard to correlate it. Um, but just to know that there are all of the Arab tribes just so you know, all the Arab tribes are described as black up until like the 15th century AD. And that's why
Mm.
Diab calls Arabia a Negro colony, because it was known that the people that were in there that were fair skinned or red were not the original or genuine Arab. The genuine
Mm.
Arabs were black, like the Sulaim, who were called by Al Jahiz in the 9th century the color of lava, as were the other tribes of the Har, and there were many. Many of the Hawazin were also among them. Many of the Nabatean tribes were among them that lived in the Hara. And a lot of these people were the Hara people, and the Hijaz people were connected to people that lived in Central Arabia. These Central Arabians, such as the Kab or the Ukail ibn, excuse me, yeah, Ukail ibn Kab, the Muntafik ibn Ukail, and people like that, they are now the black populations of Iraq, supposedly according to the Arab Press Service, were 2/3 from the Beni Amr bin Zaza tribes known as Ukail bin Kab, Muntafik ibn Ukail ibn Kab from the Beni Amr, who were a tribe of Hawazin ibn Mansur. So I
Mm.
just happen to know by heart all these names, traditional names of and traditional genealogy of the Arabians, as opposed to modern Arabs. I'm talking about Arabians, not necessarily all Middle Eastern people. And that's how I know, and that's why Rawlinson described these Kab Arabs, also known as the Chab, since biblical times, or Chub, who fought against the
Mhm.
Assyrians. They were described as having the color of being nearly black and having the color of Abyssinians.
Mm. Yeah, the
They're
Ethiopian. Mm-hmm.
Abyssinians, yeah, these Kab Arab of Iraq, where they were rulers of Babylonia up until the Ottoman period. And that's where a lot of changes come in, because you see the Ottomans, these Turks, actually were more Eurasian than they were, you know,
Asiatic.
East
Right.
East Asian. They were originally East Asian, then they came and were more uh, European related, and they actually replaced or took the power out of the hands of the many of the black or dark skinned people that were in these areas, whether it was Egypt, the Hejaz, the Assyria
Mm-hmm.
area, Iraq. That is what the colonials say. They were, you know, they took they took over and put other people that look like them in power. So
Mm.
racism doesn't just come with the Europeans, and it came before that with Ottoman period with this people like Saladin, Turkish. They brought their own kind of racism, and even in Spain or Iberia, there was fights between the Arabs or the Berber and Arab black, the original Arab dark
Mm-hmm.
skinned Berbers, with the um, non African peoples that had been converted or were slaves, like the Slavs and the Turks and the Iranians, who were
Mm.
called the slaves in Iberia. They were fighting. People in Egypt were fighting the Copts, who were called black, according to Al Makrizi of 500 years ago, fought against the Melkite Christians. He said the Copts, the Israelites, the Abyssinians and Nubians were indistinguishable and fought against and different than by race from the Melkite Christian, who were Greeks or Byzantines. And these people fought against each other and murdered each other due to them not being able to get along. So this is 400 years ago. They don't want to talk about that and say what you know. Say what happened to the cops. Where are the cops? I mean, where are these black people that Al Damashki and all these other people talked about? Not just Al Damashki, Ibn Kathir, um, Al Masudi. Everybody talked about the cops being black. They're called Kipti. Um,
Mm.
Hagar, uh, Al Hakami wrote a book about the crinkly-haired people of the Black Earth, talking about the Copts and their connection to Hagar, mother of the Ishmaelites or Northern Arabs. So, I mean, I can go on and on, and but people. if people don't, yeah, take notes, write it down, go research it, and look at. Preferably, have people should look at my blog spot so they can see the sources too. And that's I also had a course that I was doing that I invited people to that where I was teaching some of this stuff. So it's hard if you don't know the names of the tribes of the Bible. First of all, like the Midianites or the Israelites, the tribes that comprise them. It's hard to,
Mhm.
you know, really remember a lot of this stuff. But once you do or learn about them, then you can put two and two together like that.
I'm gonna say this without a doubt: the great God has blessed you with a
Yes.
skill that is so precious. It's so precious, and I appreciate you for answering the call because everybody doesn't answer the call of their purpose, and I believe that you answered that call for your purpose because you're so brilliant in this area and you've taken the time, you put in the work to be able to speak so authoritatively on a subject that's so important but yet untouched.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say it's not a lot of work as much work as you think because I literally cannot stop researching it. I've never been able to stop researching it. It's not just coming from me. It's coming
Right,
from the ancestors.
right.
So and the spirit guides that are our ancestors.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because when I was very young, I started having dreams and started being led to certain. Um, so, for example, I can listen to music and know, and something will say to me, okay, this beat was used by the Venetians or something like that. I can
Mm.
yeah tune into that. So there was a song called SOS a long time ago. I guess before I graduated high school, I had heard, and all of a sudden I start getting these tingling feelings, and then I was it was impressed on me. This was the beat they used to build the pyramids in Central America, the
What?
Olmec civilization. Before I really even knew that black people were in Central America,
Mhm.
and then within a week I went to a store. I think it was Barnes and Noble or Borders or something like that, and a book fell off the shelf. The book was called "They Came Before Columbus,"
Mm.
and then I went to. So I made it a point after I started reading the book. I made it a point to go to Rutgers and go to Dr. Van Sertima's class, and I was telling him all these different experiences and dreams I've had, and about these black people in what's now called Libya, riding their horses in figure eights, wearing this
Mm.
white, yeah, wearing this white kind of, I don't know, I don't know if it's a turban back then, but um, all I know is that I've been guided so much by the divine world,
Yes,
divinities, the divinity behind nature, because it's time for this knowledge to come back.
Mhm.
absolutely.
It's time.
Absolutely.
And not,
And wait, what's this?
I was just going to say even before I went to college, I was talking with my uncle, and he dropped me off at, he was showing me around New York and stuff. And I remember thinking I wanted to live in New York. I don't know why I wanted to live in New York or stay there. So I was staying in the YMCA there for a while, and I started meeting all these different people that were always black, but they were always saying they were from somewhere else besides Africa. And I'm like, you're right. You're a slave or something, descendant of a slave. That's how much, And I was still in high school, but that's how much I was brainwashed to think that everybody, like, I had people from Samoa I met that were black. There was Saudi Arabians coming directly from Ouda, or the area, yeah, the town in Saudi Arabia. Giant black man that I met.
Mm.
Unbelievable. And but what I was going to say is I stayed at the Y for a while, and there was a guy, one of my friends that I met there, acquaintance. He had brought in a psychic, and the psychic like looked at me, and he was like, it looked like his eyes were going to pop out of his head. I'm like, what's the matter? And he's like, oh, I see royalty around you. I said, no,
Mm.
not me. But anyway, later I did find out that my uncle was, his longtime partner was the grandniece of Haile Selassie. But
Mm.
yeah, but
Wow.
this, yeah, but this um,
Yeah, Rastafari.
same psychic told me that I was writing a book, which I was writing a book. This is actually the start of me writing about the Moors and stuff like that. And he's writing a book that's being inspired by Lorraine Hansberry, who I did not know who she was. She wrote this book called Raisin of the play Raisin of the Sun, Raisin in the Sun, or something like that. But later on, I went home. After I had to have my father pick me up from there because I was getting into all these bad things in New York City. So, um, and so I saw in my bookcase the books I had been reading that had been inspiring me were by a man named Leo Hansberry. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I went to look him up, and he was Lorraine Hansberry's brother,
Mm.
sister. No, I'm sorry, Leo was the brother of Lorraine Hansberry. So these books were it's an ancient classical African civilization. These were the books that were about, they were talking about how early Greeks and um, yeah, early Greeks and early Asians and Egyptians were black. You know, this was a period where I guess Drew Noble Ali and Dorothy Dungy and all these people that were getting into African, and Kushite civilizations. So Leo Hansberry was one of them, and he was talking about that connection between ancient Greece and ancient Egypt and the Ethiopians and things of that sort. So yeah, so that's how I probably got involved, and also other books by uh, what's his name? Nature Knows No Color Line. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
I think I've heard of it. Yeah, yes, I've heard of that book. I haven't
Um,
read it yet, but I've heard of it.
can't remember his name, but he wrote other books, and he's talked about the Moors and how Shakespeare wrote about the Moors of was it Alcatraz? I forget.
Mm.
But anyway, he was saying they were black. He called them black and stuff. And later on, when I went to research the Moors, the the people of the same names that were used in his books actually, it turned out that they were black in Morocco and places like that. The sultans, some of the sultans that he was mentioning were
Mm-hmm.
actually black. So, and he's of course the wrote about Othello and people like that, and how early European. He's the one that had the pictures of all the early European heritage of the Moors, like pictures of the black men or Negroid men with the
Mm-hmm.
wearing the white bands around their head or white ties, uh, with names like Moore, Moorhead, Murray, not Murray, Moreno, Moran, Blackmore, Swarthmore, um, all these Mormon, all these names were coming from families that had pictures of black men in their coat of arms, dating back to I think the 13th, 14th century. So Morelli, you know, Maury, all these. If you look at his book, If Knows No Color Line, and I can't think of the author's name for the first time, but he wrote other books like that. So that was you know, got me more into, um, yeah, this research. And then I had dreams and visions of other different things. So
I like to ask you a question. How does it like because with the information that you carry, and the information not only carry but the information that you disseminate, how does it feel to you to know that you care? Because that's a lot of weight, sisters. You know
I
the
feel it.
things
I
that
don't
you're
feel it
guided.
because I can't even. All I can focus on is this. So I'm not sure if
Mm,
you're understanding what I'm saying. So I'm channeling, literally channeling the. Like I'll look at a book, throw it away, put it in the trash can, and then in the middle of the night I'll get up and I'll be said, open that book back up, girl. I'll open it up, and my finger will be on the answer to something I asked about, or the Horites were this, that kind of thing, you know. Because
mm-hmm.
one of my questions was, why are people saying the Horites were not black? They were Hurrians or whatever. Then it pointed me to a guy named Akbar or Abukar the Black that lived in Edessa, Turkey. The early
Mm,
Christian, the early Christian that had the robe, or that had something to do with the robe of the letter about the robe of Jesus, or
mm-hmm.
and his name was he was called Akbar the Black or Akbar Ukama. This is what my finger was on when I opened the book, and his tribe was called the Ruha. It actually Edessa was founded by the people called the Ruha who appear in the Batian inscriptions that were related to people in also in South Arabia called Ruha or Ruhe, um, and Rawa. And it was plural Ruwa, Ruweha. So these people, part of the Khatan group, the Khatan or Jaktan, son of Shem, that live in the Yemen today,
Mm-hmm.
were actually the people that were called Hurrians.
Mm,
Well, later on found out that the Hori, Hauri, still lived or at least in the 20th century, lived in Yemen, right
mm,
near these people. So the Hori and all the other Horite peoples, actually, they're known still by their names in Yemen.
mm,
These people also crossed into Africa, where they have the same names.
mm.
So, I mean, like people don't understand like the name like Eliphaz and Amalek. Well, the Amalek lived in southern Arabia until the 20th century. They're
Mm,
mentioned there by a colonial observer. The Amalek lived next to Mokala and the Mara.
mm-hmm.
Amalek is not a legendary name. These are real people, giants that lived in Arabia. Some of them now, a lot of the people in Arabia, of course, are mixed with other people.
Hmm.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
definitely mixed with other people. Like, especially
right.
in Yemen now, they have a lot of people that mixed with the Carmathians or Central Asian people that came in. But even before that, the Sassanid era had a bunch of people that were brought in. And the Abyssinians were called in to kind of help against the the Central Asians that were taking over because the first Muslims in the Yemen were actually these Central Asians, and so they took over the
Mm,
power in in 6th century in the Yemen, and they became the landlords. And this power has not dissipated today. And that's why you have a lot of people that the blacker skinned people in the Yemen, of course, are looked down on now.
Hmm.
But they
right, right.
know why you had the ancient Mediz, according to uh, Ibn Rabiha. Ibn Abd Rabihu of Cordoba said that the Mediz group, or Udad ibn Malik, um, that this group had a leader in the 7th century called, well, he's called a Qadi or a judge. And this judge said, it was kind of like a joke. He said, An Arab will never be fair skinned. That will be
Mm.
as rare as the one of the seven wonders of the world. It is inconceivable that an Arab be fair skinned.
Mm.
Yeah. And
Wow.
the leaders of these Madish peoples who are still there, some of them the Murad and other black peoples in Yemen, still there. Um, their leader was called by these, you know, Abna or the Central Asian people. Um, wait, what's it called? I forget his name now, but he's called the Black. Um, he was the leader of the Anis tribe, and the Anis tribe, which is also the name of the Jews in the Horn of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so there was conflict all the time. There was conflict between the Arabs, the genuine Arabs, or the blacks, like the Kuder and the Nabateans and people like that, and the Byzantine, Greek, Turks, and other peoples coming from the north. And
Mm.
originally, but originally, so originally the Sassanids had taken the Arabs over in the Yemen in this like the 5th or 4th century before Islam started, and the Arabs rebelled against this. And part of it was, Muhammad and these other real Arabs or genuine Arabs, started rebelling and saying that they had different people saying that they were the true prophet and stuff like that. But they took the later took the before before they were slaves of the Persians, and then they took the Persians as slaves, or the Iranian Scythic Persians as slaves. So those were the first slaves of the Arabs, and they had not gotten along since. But and they're also the ones that started writing all this stuff about Ham being cursed, and
Mm.
and also the same thing with the Syrians and the Byzantine people. They were taken slaves by the Arabs. So that's where you get the term as read as a slave, which was
Mm.
by the Arabs in the earliest sources. Just like they as black as a slave now, or later,
Mm-hmm.
they said as read as a slave. So you could say about a tribe, if they had a lot of fair skinned people or something, said, "Oh, this guy was as this guy of the Banu Tamim was as red as a slave." That fair skin. Yeah, because that was not even what do you call it? Al-Dahabi claimed that there were no, and this was 14th century. He said there were very few. It was very rare to see people of fair skin in the Hejaz, and that they were mainly Khudur, like I said, which means near black, and that if one was seen, it was just assumed that he descended from a slave. But it was very rare to see one. He said that, right? And
Wow.
all the
Bro.
tribes of the Hejaz were also found. Hejaz is, of course, where Medina and Mecca and Khaybar, the capital of the Jews of Arabia, and Jeddah,
Uh-huh.
all these sacred areas of the Quran, and actually the original Paran or Farin was there. That they named the Amalek named that area, and that's why they said Ephraim came out of Amalek, whose roots were in Amalek. But anyway, the Amalek and all these other giant Negroid people that were there are mentioned in medieval sources. So
Mm.
I don't know if you heard of Ubadah bin Samit, um, who was the Umayyad. See, the early Umayyads were mainly black, of course, like the original
Mm-hmm.
Arabs.
Mm-hmm.
So a leader in a Byzantine leader in Egypt uh, said once, "Get this black man away from me," because he was giant. He was of the
Mm-hmm.
Khazraj, the Ansar or companion tribe of Muhammad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he said, and then they told him, look, we're not. He's our leader. He's, what we are. And he said, and then Ubada bin Samit, whose name is actually the Nabatean god Ubada, Ubeda,
Mm-hmm.
as it's Samit, there's a Nabatean ancient gods. He said, I will bring back with me, you think I'm scary, I will bring back with me men much blacker and scarier than I am. I will bring back 1,000 men, he said. 1,000 men from Hijaz. In other words, his kinsmen from the Khazraj Aus group. These giant blacks, and that's exactly, if you look at like Muhammad's uncle, I forget his name, Ibn, what's his name? Mutalib, al-Mutalib, a
Yeah, I'm Mutali. Yeah.
he's described with his sons as looking like black camels surrounding the Kaaba. When they went around the Kaaba, it looked like giant black camels.
Mm.
Different other groups of the Aus, Nabat, or Nabatean group. And these people claim to have come from the Azd peoples of southern Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole other, it's important to know who these people are, but it's a whole other story. So the Az still live in, some of the Az still live in Central Arabia called Dawasir, and the colonialists describe them as black giants.
Mm.
Some of the records record them being over 8 feet tall. So these are the people that used to be called the giants in. So the Dawasir, for example, have a tribe named Nuphail, which is the Nephilim in the Bible.
Mm.
They had a ruler called Ak in the tribe of Ak. Ak is known as Og in the Bible. Og of Rephaim, the Amorite.
Mm.
So when I say I saw a giant black, well, he was black. He was actually my color, but redder. So the
Mm-hmm.
Amorites, they used to say the Amorites look like giant cedars of Lubnain. They think they interpreted that as Lebanon, but it really referred to the Lubnain that was in Yemen.
Mm.
So yeah, there's so much, I could go on and on. I don't want
Hey,
to. You guys yawning, and I could go on and on.
listen, we
Oh
enjoy
no,
it.
yeah, it's just so much. And excuse me, and like I said, what we was talking about, it's kind of like revelations, because what we was talking about earlier today and what we've been building on for the last couple of weeks has pretty much tied into
Mm.
everything you're presenting now. So it's just now just putting all these keys together, and it's just
Mhm.
like,
Okay,
wow,
great.
this is
Yeah.
this is just
I
eye
would say
opening.
what it is, man, and I'm definitely not taking a position of confirmation bias when I say this. But everything she said just says to me, said that Drew Ali was right. He wasn't wrong.
Right.
He knew what he was talking about, brother. You know what I'm saying? And it's amazing. It's so
That's great.
amazing because he was saying this in the 1920s, bro.
Right.
It makes you want to know, how did he know this?
Well, the guy that was working with him, what's his name? The Afghani guy. I don't know
You
if he's
talking about?
Afghani.
Oh,
The
you
guy,
right.
the guy had straight hair, and I can't remember his name.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found out was that I think he was a real, he was from the Middle East. He and other certain people, and the Theosophists, like the Theosophists,
Mm-hmm.
people that were, influenced by Rosicrucianism and
Mm-hmm.
early esoteric beliefs in the Near East and in Europe, all came together in Egypt as a committee a few times, and they were talking about different, you know, a lot of
Jamal Afghani.
Oh, was it?
That was his name, Jamal Afghani.
Oh, okay. So he
And
knew. See, the Arab in the Arab sources, it tells you. If if we knew Arabic, we would read it. Arab
hmm
sources tell us that the land south of Mecca was called Canania. There's also a Wadi Kanona there, even today, which is means the valley of the Canaana. So it's the valley of the Canaanites. It extends
mm,
south of the plain of Canaan down to the Yemen, and it ends around.
mm,
Yeah. So it's yeah. So that I started to figure out certain things. But what really intrigued me was the spiritual power that I had seen of some of the leaders of your group. Because
mm,
I didn't tell you this, but one of the first things that I experienced when I was invited to one of the temples here in Philadelphia, and I forget who the leader is, but when I saw him, I saw, I mean, he came down the aisle, but he was covered by a white, I don't know if it was an angel or what. He was overshadowed by a white, large, uh, it was like a divine, I don't know, presence.
Aura.
My mouth was just open. I was like, what? I'm like,
it
oh,
could.
I got
Sounds
scared.
like, let me tell you who it sounds like. Sounds like the brother. If you say out of Philadelphia, it definitely sounds like the brother Azim Hopkins Bey.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
who it sounds like.
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. I like that, brother.
And
So I,
that is a beautiful brother. Do you
yeah,
understand me? That's a
well,
beautiful brother.
that might be an earth, what you call an earth angel or something, because
Yeah.
you know how these Western people like to say, earth angel. But yeah, he definitely is high. I don't know, ascended or something to some level. And
Mhm.
then, as I always tell people, then I was invited to this and also I have to say I'm also clairvoyant, so I don't know
Yeah.
if other people would see this, but when I see it, I know what I'm seeing.
Yes.
Um, when I went to the Baltimore, I think it was, yeah, it was Baltimore. It was this big, nice center where there was a conference and hundreds of people were there. And when I walked in, some of the leaders were talking, and I swear to God, it felt like I was in heaven or something. And I was looking around, I'm like,
Mm.
what's going on? I'm in the cosmic. I could not believe what was happening to me. My consciousness was just like, went up somewhere. Yeah. So
Mm.
I said, there, I could almost see spinning around like divine angelic presences. And I said, oh my God, this is what the Moors are about. This is what, you know, yeah, this is a real secret society. This is not a joke. I don't know if people know what I know, but it is not, it was, I guess it's like, the Theosophists too, they had, because my mom was a Theosophist, and they also had
Mhm.
contact with a lot of supposedly ascended masters, the real ones and stuff. Um, and Blavatsky was said to have been able to, transport things, and I don't know. Anyway,
I'll say this.
supposedly
I'm man.
a lot of these people were together. The leaders of these groups, like I don't know if Noble was also one of them, but so it wasn't surprising to me when I read some of the newspaper articles about him being a healer, because
Yes.
that's actually what it's all about—the transference of
Yeah.
the energy, the divine light of God. That's what Masonry,
hmm
the true Masonic, uh, you know, mystery system was about, dating back to ancient Egypt and before, probably crossing Americas, like you guys like to say, across
Yeah.
America. Somebody, the Olmecs, the earliest pyramids over here in Central America come from the Olmecs, and they had these gigantic heads of Africans or people wearing cornrows. And
Mm-hmm.
people want to argue about that. They should be trying to find out what the heck they knew.
Right,
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
you do find these giant heads in Africa too. Even West Africa, you find giant heads, and throughout Polynesia, you have or Polynesia, Melanesia, you have Fijians saying that they came from Africa. You have Kamehameha and the earliest Hawaiians looked black, and they had these kind of Tahiti had these kind of pyramid structures. I think they had deities named that were similar to the ancient Egyptians names, like Amma or something like that. I don't know, Amakua or I don't know. All I know is that there was some global civilization that existed long before Europeans got involved. That knew about um, pyramid building and these megalithic astronomy. Um,
The mystic systems.
yeah, mystery systems. The Dogon held that till the very end. The Dogon, who were connected to the Garamantes or the Cordomanse, we call them, that came to America too.
That's
Mm.
an interesting group.
Yeah, if people
The
wanted to know,
Dogon tribe.
yeah, but this, and somebody told me the Dogons claim descent from the Nabateans too. So I don't know, but supposedly, according to this guy Al-Damashki too, the Nabateans were the ones that built early civilization, that put the seeds in the ground, that the people that raised crops and built buildings. That's exactly what he said. So Nabate by his time just simply meant the black man, Nabit
Mm.
or Nabate, according to one of the sources. So I don't know. If people are interested, fine. I am.
Yeah,
I'm just
I'm
saying,
very interested.
yeah. What?
Hey, sister, they I have some people in the chat want to know do you have your website where they can order your material?
Oh, oh yeah. Well, it's the Mellon Press website. Actually, you can order the book Afro-Asiatics. Oh wait, no, sorry. The African and Arabian Origin of the Hebrew Bible, and then there's also another. I don't know if you guys know Fear of Blackness, which is the much later thing about the Moors and Berbers and their connection to, yeah, connection
Oh
to
yeah, trust
coming.
me. Inshallah, I'm definitely going to be supporting those. I'm definitely going to be purchasing both of those. And adding
Uh,
those to my library. I'm
just to
talking about
let you know, the one of the books is like over $200, and then the other
eight.
one is
It's priceless information.
yeah, it is. It
Priceless
really is.
information.
And I'm just
And I would like to have these type of books around once I leave. Once I make transition and I'm no longer here in the flesh. I would like to have these books around, so those after me of my family would pick them up and actually read it and investigate who they are. I don't hoard information just for the sake of myself.
right,
I have these books not only for me to read, but to leave behind, hoping and praying that I've influenced my family and those around me in a manner that's influential enough to make them want to know
right.
and seek. So if I'm not really a person who, when it comes to information like this, I'm not the type of person who would say, "Oh, that's too much," and that's. I mean, you look at this book here, and did I go look and find out, how they what they're trying to sell this for today.
Yeah, I know. I can't
So,
afford it. Luckily, I have one now, but
uh-huh,
barely afford it myself. But
yeah.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's a good collectible item, and you might want to make copies of it too, because I don't know what people are going to try to destroy some of this information with AI coming out. I see kind of strange things.
absolutely,
I see kind of strange
absolutely.
things that are trying to promote, the wrong algorithms concerning Africans and Afro-Asiatics, especially.
Hmm.
Just like Wikipedia, I call it Wickedpedia, and what they're
Wikipedia.
doing about the Moors and trying to say that originally there was no black Moors or it didn't mean black and all that stuff. But
Oh, They're trying to destroy the narrative, and
Yeah.
that's truly the
All the
secret to it.
narratives, all the narratives. Well, there's been so much usurped and adopted from these early people that you can't even really. You have to take everything back. Once you have to take one thing, you have to take everything because it's all connected.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. Unfortunately, I mean, it's too bad, but and certain people were meant to be born. Now, I personally believe in reincarnation. I believe I was born in different.
I personally do myself.
Yeah, I believe I was born into different races, not just African and stuff. Because I've seen different other people and places and stuff. But I do believe now is the time for this knowledge to come back to through the people that are descended biologically from these people to know
Right.
and for them to know about it because it's based on spiritual metaphysical wisdom that has to come back. And it was taken out by these people that adopted Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Mhm.
So, so hopefully the Moors are continue. Yeah, will continue to do that their part.
Absolutely. And sister, and listen, with sister, with family like you, sisters and brothers like you, that brings such powerful information to the forefront. It kind of, what it kind of does. It kind of makes us to continue to do what you already doing the heavy lifting, sister. You already doing the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
So, in honor to
Oh,
you, we have to. Hmm?
one last thing, or I don't know if you want to go on, but I did like I used to go to a psychic, and this psychic told me you're going to be working with people that he said you're going to be working with Masons first of all, and he said watch out because they don't like they don't like to be called black or something or something like that. They said they don't. These people don't like to be called black, and you're going to be working with them. And this guy's
Mm.
Filipino. He's not even black. And I said, oh, I knew that. A couple years later, I was, being interviewed by Moorish organizations and stuff. And I said, oh, now I know what he was talking about.
And I'm gonna keep it real. When I first saw the first video I saw you, I was completely blown. I was like, I really didn't know at that time that was you in this book that was that was written about in this book, and I was like, who is this sister? You know, and Sharif, you know, um, gave me the information, brought made me acquainted with you. I was like,
Mhm.
man, and so I've been following you for years. For years. You know what I'm saying? I may not have said nothing for a while, but I definitely liked, shared, commented on your work, and it was like I told Sharif, I was like, Sharif, we gotta get Sister Dana on here, and he was like, man, reach out to her, just reach out to her and ask her.
Yeah.
And
I love to come on. I don't like
yeah,
I don't like people to withdraw, but I do like to.
yes, ma'am, and like I tell the listening audience, we were supposed to be on yesterday. A little communication error. Brother Sharif also wasn't able to get on yesterday, so we postponed to today.
I mean,
And
Sharif has interviewed me so a lot of times that I didn't.
yes,
Um, yeah, you got. I need new questions. I mean, Sharif knows all this too. So
yes,
yeah,
he does. He
he's a
does.
good.
And really to have you on with myself and Brother Jarvis is more so we're students. We don't we're we're not gonna say that we know as much as Sharif.
Yeah,
But what we will say is that we truly we're truly students of these teachings. We students, and we're striving to seriously gain a better understanding each day, because it's so much wisdom to be learned. We know this.
Mhm.
So this is more of a study. This is more of a listening session for us, because I had never had the opportunity to communicate with you this way before. So I definitely wanted to give you your voice, and everybody in the chat wanted to hear your voice, wanted to hear what you want to say. So I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't want to, just allow you to really present your information. And it seems like the chat is very grateful for it. They're very grateful.
I didn't see that. I just now seeing it. Thanks.
Uh,
Thanks, everybody.
right to right says, "Thank you. I'm so very grateful and happy you're here, Empress Dana. Love the brilliance and grace."
Oh, where is that? I would like to respond. Well, thank you. Thank you so much to the chat and to you guys, for inviting me. I mean, I like to talk forever, so I'm glad you were able to absorb or listen to, you
Oh
Yeah.
yes, man. Like I say, we students, so
know.
we'll sit quiet and listen. And like I say, this is my first time being introduced to you in your work, so that's why I'm quiet because I really
Yeah.
wanted to hear what you had to say. So it's my first time.
Oh, okay.
That's
Interesting.
I spoke to him about you. He didn't even like yesterday. He knew it was supposed to be a show yesterday, but he didn't understand the magnitude of the show. He didn't know who you were, and I explained that today to him today when I saw him. He was like, "Oh yeah, I got to be there," So you know, I was so excited. I was so excited. I was so excited. I even took me a little nap to make sure I could be alert enough, to absorb what you said. You know what I'm saying? What you presented, and I know we almost thought we weren't going to be here tonight, and we got to reschedule for September. I still would like to have you back in September if you have time.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think I'll have
Um,
more time then. I'll be back.
Yes, ma'am.
Cool.
Anytime is good for me. You just let me know when you're ready to come back, and the platform is yours. Anytime,
Yeah, I'm
anytime.
trying to finish. The, I am trying to finish a manuscript on the Canaanites. That's why I was like, I don't know if I really want to keep trying to come on and because I had prepared, for this day. It stopped me from working on the book and stuff, which was supposed to be out last year.
We're not going to stop you from that. We need you to
oh
put that. We need you to put that together. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The people need that. But we're definitely going to let you get back to that. But also know whenever you have something on your heart that you feel like you need to present to the people, that you want to present to the people, only thing you have to do is reach out to me. Hit me on Facebook. The same way I communicated with you, you can communicate with me, and I'll get you right on, sister. And let's go ahead and say this to the listening audience. This is the first sister who
hmm
has been on Let's Think podcast, and it is a entire honor to have this as the first sister. Like this is monumental for Let's
yes.
Think
Oh,
podcast.
that's definitely an honor then if I'm the first. Yeah.
Yeah, you are the first. And hey, man, what? How? I mean, how?
I'm not sure why that is, but
Yeah. Oh man. Hey, listen. And I even have people inbox me like, "Oh, you gonna have Sister Dana? This the first sister." I say, I know this is the first sister on the channel." So in a person of your intellectual powers, and being a sister, that means a lot too. Because you know, for some reason things can be very get to be very male dominant, and and this is great to have a shift of energy here tonight, and
oh,
once get an opportunity to see me in my in my mode of honoring what once would call the divine feminine. I'm humble. I'm humble. Like at the feet of my mother, I'm humble. And I just want to continue to tell you, thank you for coming. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you for having me on and for allowing this word and knowledge of the ancestors come through, from
Yes,
the
ma'am.
divine one. Thank you so
Uh,
much.
Yes, man. And creator of the boundless universe, he said, Moors are stiff necked people who deal with things at the point of a sword. Hey, yeah, that's the words of the prophet Noble Drew Ali. Yeah, we can be very stiff necked, and especially when it comes to this information. We rather be doing everything else but what matters. And the prophet said, get ready, or you'll be forced to do so. And knowing, having a sensing of thyself is a part of that paradigm. So our people don't like to really sit down, read, study, and our attention spans are so short now with the
No, I
social
wouldn't
media
know.
thing. Yeah. you know. But long as we got sisters like you, sisters and brothers like you who are keeping intellectualism alive.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Because we're in it,
Well, yeah,
we're in it.
it was
Yes.
the Wangara were known as the scholars of Africa, the traders of gold and miners and gold salt, and they were known as the scholars of Africa. They were the ones that had these
Mm,
universities, were building the Masons as well, building all these universities and things.
yes,
So,
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, we've been on 2 hours and 10 minutes. So
oh wow, okay.
yeah. I think we're gonna I know Brother Jarvis got to hit the road tomorrow.
Mhm.
Um I got to get some things done early tomorrow. So sister, again, all that I can do is say honest to you. I thank you. I
Thank you.
truly thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
Very
And
much.
I pray to have you on soon again once you get through with that book. I'd like to have you come on and talk about it, present it. You know what I'm saying? And maybe our listening order, we can put the link in our listening order to purchase it, and we can just continue to get this information out here. And I just want, I'm not, I don't even consider myself a scholar. I don't consider like I said this on the last show. I don't consider myself a scholar. I don't even really consider myself to be most learned. But what I am is a vessel and an instrument in the hands of the Almighty, the ancestors, the divine source, to be a bridge or be an avenue in which, if I'm not saying it, I can bring somebody else who can and who's willing to. So I think that's where I am in my space right now. Even though I'm a teacher in the temple, of course I am. But I think, when it comes to this right here, I think that's my calling, is to bring those who are knowledgeable and well qualified to speak on particular topics to the forefront and allow the world to see. You know what I'm saying? At least my listening audience, as much as I can, as much as my little reach can take. So, um, I just like to say again, thank you, brother Jarvis. I thank you. Brother. Listen.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, in
Well,
the chat,
You, Brother
in the
Jarvis,
chat,
too.
ma'am.
thank you, man. Thank you. Like I say,
Uh,
it's an honor. Like I say, I mean, they talked about your work so much, but it's good to see you in person and good to hear your voice and how everything worked.
Mhm.
And if I wasn't in South Carolina, I'd love to just come sit at your table.
Where in South Carolina?
I'm in Lancashire,
Oh, okay, I don't know that. I know
um,
people's from, where is it? Abbeville? Abbeville?
Abbeville.
Yeah. Was that,
I
or
think that's like
near Columbia?
yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
Edgeville? Something like that. Yeah, near Columbia,
Yes, ma'am.
Carolina.
That's
So,
not too far from me. It's probably like
okay.
45 minutes. I'm like 45 minutes from Charlotte too, so each way.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, I'm in Charlotte, so
Oh,
yeah, so
I
yeah,
always confuse the Charlotte of South Carolina and that of North Carolina.
yeah. But I mean, like I
We
say,
have a lot of similar towns.
Yeah.
yeah,
Have a lot of similar
yeah.
towns.
Man, when you
And
do the history on both of them, you'll see why.
yeah, I know. But Charlotte, of course, was at least she was like descended from the Moorish. So,
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Charlotte.
Well, listening audience, I got to go.
Mm-hmm.
Got to go. I extend the fire to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Blessings to all. Blessings to you, sister, again,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody who's listening. Everybody, hit the like button before you leave. Please help us out. Help us
Share,
out. Hit
share,
the like
share,
button.
share.
Created a boundless universe.
Thank you
You,
so
my
much.
brother, you always supporting. I love that. Continue to support. And until the next time, peace.
Peace.
It's salam.
Salam.